So the world programs us to think that we're always supposed to be happy and everything is supposed to be going perfect, and that's not how it is. So when you're happy, enjoy it, and when something bad happens, you're at a choice point and you need to decide, am I going to do something that's going to make this better, or I'm going to do something that makes this worse?
You are listening to the Go Earn Your Salt podcast, brought to you by Salt Electrolytes. On this podcast, your host Riley Rogers, that's me, explores the stories of people who get after it, get things done, and earn their salt. You will hear from high achievers who discuss what makes them tick, how they got to where they are today, and where they are headed tomorrow. Perhaps this podcast will help you go earn your salt. Today I've got a special interview. This is my favorite cousin, Krystal. It's a joke we've played or talked about for a lot of years until I got married, and now I'm no longer her favorite cousin. My wife is now her favorite cousin, and I got demoted to number 2. But today is just...
But notice I have stayed the same.
Yeah, well, you know, some people are cooler than others, I guess. Whatever. I'm excited for this interview because Krystal and I, obviously, we're cousins, but we were cousins with shenanigans. We did some stuff, and we're going to talk about some of the fun we had kind of in our high school days, and hopefully you're entertained with this. But Krystal, welcome to the show.
Thank you, second favorite cousin.
This is going to be super cool. So Krystal's had just a remarkable life. There's some things she's done that, you know, in my mind are kind of superhuman, and I wanted to bring her on today, not just because she's family, but also because, man, when you hear her story, you're going to understand what I'm talking about. She's achieved some things through, against the odds that we're gonna kind of talk about. So, I want to start off, like, you know, we're only a year apart, right? Just, is it a year and a month or something? I don't know if I know when your birthday is.
Actually, days. Remember?
Days. What?
Days, like 15 days. I'm the 2nd. You're the 17th. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, that was what I was going to ask, because I don't know that I actually have your birthday memorized, and I thought we were both in December.
Good, and we're not going to discuss it on here.
How many birthdays? Well, I do notice you're catching me.
We are 1 year and 15 days apart.
1 year and 15 days. Okay. Well, there you are. So
when we were little, I was jealous because he was older. Now I'm doing it because I'm younger.
Well, barely though. And that gap of percentages starts to close over time, because I used to be twice your age when we were really little, but I'm not anymore.
Seems like it, yeah.
So that means you're catching up. So we had some fun times. Let's talk about the time you came to school with me and pretended to be my deaf cousin. You want to tell that story?
Sure. So Riley and I were a year apart. We had 2 rival high schools, and we obviously went to the different high schools.
And I went to the cool one.
But it was, yeah. We also lived in a small town, so you knew people from the other high schools. It was most likely that the middle school you went to, not all the kids went to the same high school, so you knew students there. So I don't know if we should share this, but Riley and I would skip school, but then I would go collect attendance from Riley's high school and turn it in with him marked not absent. Most of what we did when we skipped school was go to Central Park and get a burger and fries. But this time he couldn't miss because he had a test. And so I decided to go to class with him, and it was typing class. And of course, when we walk in, Riley's like, this is my deaf cousin. She's from California. Can she sit in on the class today? And the teacher, I'm going to try and do this without making crazy faces and hope that most people are just listening and not watching any video. But she wants to know if I want to play some games. And she says it like maybe I'm slow, not deaf, which was very hilarious because Riley was like, I said deaf, not stupid. But then, of course, somebody walks into the class and they're like, Krystal, what are you doing here? And Riley and I both have to be like, no, no, dude, you don't know me. I'm the deaf cousin. But I literally sat at a computer and pretended to be the deaf cousin while Riley took his test in the typing class.
That was so funny because it was her tone of voice was she spoke to you really loudly. Like if she talked louder, you'd hear her, you know.
And slowly and slow.
Oh, would you like to play some games? Like maybe she was trying to get you to read her lips or something. That was great.
Because when people read lips, you must talk slower so they understand.
Yeah, maybe some people get good at it.
It's fun times.
But that's a super fun memory. I got such a kick out of that because yeah, when I can't remember who it was that walked in the room and recognized you, but almost blew it. But somehow we pulled that crap together.
Well, my mom says if my mouth don't say it, my face would. So I'm pretty sure he saw my face and knew what to do.
That you know, I got to credit you too. So you mentioned the attendance thing, right? Is we knew people in the attendance office, and so when we would skip school, yeah, we were calling them up or catching them later, going, "Hey, man, go back there and mark my paper I skipped, and I need you to mark me there." And yeah, I think half my senior year I probably skipped half those classes, but I paid for it in my grade point average because I wasn't in class to learn, but.
Well, that's the difference between us because my dad also knew I was skipping most of the time. He would let me use his truck sometimes when I skip and be like, be back by lunchtime. But straight A's, so he was okay with that.
Yeah, not me. So
that's because I was typing your reports.
Okay, so
right?
yeah, I want to go into that too because there's I would not have graduated if it wasn't for you and Lindsay. I stole both your papers and I skipped so much my senior year that I had gone from like a 3.3 grade point average my junior year to a 1.8, and that was not good enough to graduate. And we were having those oh crap moments, and we're like 3 weeks before the end of the year, and the counselors are telling me, buddy, you're not going to make it through unless you get straight A's on the everything you do from here on out, and it's got to be like perfect. So yeah, I took. Oh, I think it was your government report, a couple of them. Turned those in for my finals. Just put my name in place of yours. Scored high enough that I graduated with a 2.1. Snuck by.
Okay, he's saying overall grades. His grade on that report was an 8.
It had to be. It had to be because I wouldn't have. It brought my average up 0.3 of a point, which was what allowed me to graduate high school.
Do you also remember the report that I typed for you? And we discovered that the teacher didn't really even read the report.
Tell me about this because maybe I didn't read the report.
So, no, you didn't because you never read the reports I wrote either, or Lindsay. We were at my parents' house. We were at my dad's Apple computer, probably one of the very first Apple computers ever. That's how old we are.
We thought he was the coolest with that thing.
And of course, it doesn't have Word. I don't know what program we were using, but Riley's kind of telling me what to type in the report. But, every third paragraph or something, I'd throw in the sentence about the princess and the frog or something silly like that had nothing to do with the report. And I knew his teacher or him never read it, apparently, because handed it in and he got a good grade on it with. It was like, these teachers don't read these anyway.
I can't believe you risked my graduation just to insert some bullcrap into a paper.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Oh my gosh. So here's what I think is cool about this.
Wait. This is what we should talk about also, though, Riley. Just in case nobody else in your podcast brings this up, tell us about your hairdo that senior year.
Oh my. I actually have that picture still. I had to post it here. If I can get a copy of that where I can actually stick it up here, I will stick it up here. But so a little background. At the time, I was a pretty avid skier, into the kind of steep mountain, out of bounds kind of extreme skier. At least I thought I was. I was cool. And I had hair at the time, which I really kind of don't now. But I had a 13-inch tall mohawk on top of my head, which was my senior picture. I was pretty proud of that haircut. I will try to get a copy of that picture and put it up here so you guys can see it. But yeah, back when I had hair. So talk about this. I wanna move past our teenage shenanigans and kind of move into where life took you after that.
Okay, so although I was getting straight A's in high school, I didn't necessarily make the best choices. I started working at a restaurant. There was an older guy there as well. And him and I started dating, if that's what you would call it. And we ended up getting married like a few days after I turned 18, which was crazy. I will tell you, my parents were heartbroken and um, not up for any of this, but um, was married to him for 6 years and had two kids, but he, surprise, surprise, ended up being very abusive, um, broken bones, controlling, very, very textbook domestic violence stuff. And, it took, my son was 4 years old, and he made a fist and stepped at my son, and that's what it took for the light bulb to go off and me realize that I wasn't the only victim and my kids were too. And at that point, I um, made the decision that I was getting out of there, and I made a plan and I followed through with it. And I mean, there were several years till the divorce was final that were crazy and stalking, and he was arrested several times within that. But I got out of it and got my kids out of it, and he is no longer a part of any of our lives. And it's just uh, so thankful that that's the decision I made, and where my life and both my kids' lives have ended up because of making that decision and doing what was right for us.
You, what do you think happens in that, just psychologically? What's your thoughts on why it takes people so long to exit those situations when the writing's on the wall and everyone else sees it, but they can't?
Right. So I think the biggest thing is people think that it's just physical violence, but there's so much emotional that leads up to before the physical even starts. And it's all about power and control. That's what it's about. And so, they feel like they could keep that control just being verbally and emotionally abusive. And then when they feel like they're losing that control at some point is usually when it will turn to physical. And I'm saying this as I work with Family Service Alliance, which is for survivors of domestic violence, helps them get out and plan. They helped me a lot. I speak with the victim witness coordinator from the Pocatello Police Department, and we go to um, schools, to police officers, just to try and teach them about this. So I've learned, but I'm not an expert. I just wanted to throw that out there. So it's about the control, and then when they feel like they're losing it, they see how else they can get that control back. Um, and so you're beat down. You're beat down emotionally. You're beat down physically, and they make you believe that you won't be anything without them, that you can't do things without them. And then there's the threat: you leave me, I'll kill you. You leave, I'll kill the kids. Um, you won't have any money. You won't have a place to go. You all of these things. And when you are at your lowest and you're in that situation, unfortunately, you believe what they say.
You know, that's some scary crap. It's hard for me to relate to because I haven't walked in those shoes, right? But I think as you describe that, it makes it kind of visual about you can sort of see that downward spiral that eventually leads to the fear, which leads to the unknown, man. Maybe they're right. Maybe I can't survive without them, kind of brings all that doubt in. Now, I don't want to sit and dwell on this whole thing for this entire podcast. I want to move on to where you went after that, because now you're a single mom. He's not in the picture anymore. You got two kiddos to raise, and you made a big switch, and where did that take you?
So, the one thing I had decided is I was going to make my sure that my kids didn't have to want for anything. And I'm not talking about spoiling them or silver spoon, anything like that, but that I didn't have to worry about how the power bill was going to be paid, where their next meal was going to come from, and in the marriage and in the relationship, money was tight, and so I decided that I was going to go back to school and that I was going to get a degree in something that interests me, but also I could make sure that I could provide for my kids and myself as well. I would also like to point out that I went through therapy, I went to support groups all of this time. So I was not just bettering myself through education, I was um, mental control and taking care of myself that way as well. So I went to the continuing education here at Idaho State University here in Pocatello, Idaho, where I'm at. And I like to call it an aptitude test because it makes me feel really, really smart. But it was also like an interest test. And I do this, and the top five categories are all types of engineering. And kind of at this point, I'm like, I don't want to drive a train. That's what you think of when you hear engineer usually.
Well, so preface that we come from a railroad family, right? Like in my family, my dad.
Grandpa was railroad, your dad, railroad. Um, Railroad is huge in Pocatello, Idaho.
Yeah,
A lot of the businesses around here are named after some catchy railroad type thing. So yeah.
yeah. So when we hear engineer coming from that background, that's where that comes from. Yeah, for sure. Okay.
So they put me in touch with an advisor at the College of Engineering, and I went and spoke with them, and they just gave me a rundown of what it was, the different kind of fields that they were, and I wasn't sure then what field I wanted to go in, but I started getting my generals. I had to my test scores from high school were too old at this point because it had been 6 years that I had to do some entry level tests that placed me where I needed to be in math, which I think is one reason that this was the fields because I always excelled at math. It was something that came easy for me. I joke that I took first place in the spelling bee in second grade. I have the trophy for you if you want to see it. And that's where I peaked. Like second grade speller because I was first place then, but always excelled at math.
10,000 hours is a steep mountain to climb to become a master, especially when the task at hand puts a relentless demand on your body. There is nothing casual about this sport. It's all in, all effort, all focus. It takes a lot from you, but the reward is unmatched. Mastery of oneself, an acute understanding of your weaknesses with an explosive sense of your strengths. Being able to complete the climb to mastery requires the proper nutrition. This is why it's important to take in a potent blend of electrolytes that is in tune with your output and brings strength to your goals. This potent blend is only found in salt electrolytes. Salt targets your depleted electrolyte levels with a boost of hydration and health. It gives your body the baseline recovery it needs.
And so I took some generals, did my entry level engineering, and decided that I was more geared towards civil engineering. Got my bachelor's, went to work, and then decided to go back and get my master's as well. And so I have a bachelor's and a master's in civil engineering. And a lot of people don't know this about engineering, but it's very similar to doctors and attorneys that you have board exams and you have to be licensed in state. And so now I'm licensed in 6 different states and able to practice in those states. And I keep those I keep all my, you have to, you'll be glad to hear this. We also have to have continuing education. So um, keep all that current so I can continue to do that.
Yeah. There is, what do you call it? Because you go from being kind of it's not really an apprenticeship, but it's sort of as you enter into engineering, then you get, is it called a professional engineers?
Yep. So when you graduate, once you have your bachelor's, you take, it's called the fundamentals of engineering. You'll hear it in the field called the FE. And so with this, it gives you a license, but that license to work under a professional engineer. So it's saying you have the education, but now you need to get the experience. It's very similar to doctors and pharmacists doing their rotations. You hear them that they're doing rotations, and it's
Rotations,
just,
residency, that sort of thing.
yep, that they're just doing this so that they are working under somebody who is fully licensed. And then once you have that 4 years of experience, you take the professional engineering exam or the PE, and then pass that, and you get your stamp. If you've seen engineering drawings, they have that stamp on them, but which just pretty much says, I've checked everything on here, and I'm responsible if my design doesn't work. I'm not responsible if the contractor doesn't build it correctly.
Yeah, yeah. Aren't you glad? Because that's a real thing. You know, we've seen some projects over the last few years that have made the news, right? That were, they used the wrong type of concrete, or they didn't reinforce correctly, or they did the, the engineering specs read right, but the contractor didn't do this part.
One thing I think that's super, super important about that, though, is it also says that I understand ethics and that I take them seriously. And I think that's something that is important, and that everybody should do in all aspects of their life, but definitely professionally too. It's saying that I understand the risks, and um, other humans are important to me,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and you've had some pretty high profile projects around Pocatello there. I remember we went on a tour one day, and you were showing me around town and what different things you've worked on. Can you talk about some of those and what's kind of been your favorite?
Sure. I feel really fortunate to have been able to work on a lot of the projects that I do are in industrial plants, and people never really get to see them, or they don't look that amazing. And I've got to um, work on some that are actually in the public eye, and people see every day. Um, and it's really fun because you can go talk to students interested in engineering or things like this, and they can be like, oh yeah, I've seen that project, and not understand what all went behind it. So I got to be the lead engineer for the Portneuf Wellness Complex here in Pocatello, which is an 80-acre park. It includes an amphitheater, reservoir, and the reservoir wouldn't be possible without a dam, and so this dam is permitted by Idaho Water Resources. Was very lucky to have a good mentor who had been through that process before, so I was able to learn a lot about that process. In ball fields, soccer fields, volleyball courts. My favorite thing is there's a pedestrian bridge there that goes over a man-made stream, so it's a pump. But I just love being able to. It's something that my parents can see, my grandparents can see, my cousins can see, um, and know that I've been a part of that. So that is something that you can go Google that and just see what a beautiful facility it is. But one of the projects that I got to work with some great people, some great architects. The contractors were super amazing in that project. And one thing about it's the Portneuf Health Trust that funded this. And one thing is, it was very important to them that we aren't bringing people from out of state to do this work, that we are hiring local people. And so we just got to know a lot of amazing people in our community. And it was a super, it took a while to build that. So you got to know these people and make lifelong friendships. And everybody that worked on it just knew it was important and it was dedicated to the job, to the project, and it just made the job like teamwork for everything. I was very fortunate to work on that project.
That sounds really cool. I love that part of business when you get to meet other movers and shakers, right? You get out there in the community, especially when it's local people, and you're just like, man, I don't quite understand what this person does and how they do it, but they sure make a cool finished product. I like that aspect where you really get to see the insides of what makes someone tick, especially when it's a stressful situation or you have a big project. Like, I mean, you guys built the freaking dam up there with a reservoir, and you're talking about a man-made stream and a pump, and because I take it recycles that back up to this, kind of keeps that whole circle going, right? But yeah, you're right above a town, so you're up on the hill right above a town. So if that goes wrong, that poor neighborhood below that's going to have a rough day.
And previously, so construction going on right now, but it would have taken out the flying Y for I-15 also if there would have been a break. So it was a pretty serious thing, and it's all dams and what has to go in it into designing it are based on the hazards, and it was a high hazard for this one. So there's all kinds of things that you can't see on the outside to make sure that um, this dam is being maintained and doing what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, it's not just a pile of dirt, is it?
No.
So that's pretty cool. You went from there, kind of being, I'm just going to call it apprentice because I don't know all the right terms, but as you're learning this trade, you're walking through this project, you mentioned having a good mentor that helped you navigate through that Portland Wellness Center. And then that transitions into where you are today, where you became partner a few years ago and then owner now. So what did that process look like?
I think this is one reason that I went into engineering, because I like to learn. I want to learn. But I think it's not, I don't care what you go to school for. There's just things that they can't teach you. So I think, I mean, obviously in engineering, I didn't learn about HR. I didn't learn about leadership. I didn't learn about payroll, financial stuff. There's things that I've just had to learn. And I think the biggest thing is paying attention, not being afraid to ask questions, which I think goes to any aspect in your life. And then not being afraid to do the research. We are very lucky that we have Google at our fingertips and you can have questions answered easily. I think and so that is a lot, but also trusting myself. So there's imposter syndrome. I think everybody goes through it. It's something that is talked about a lot as far as women in engineering. And so it's just getting past that and it's not always knowing the answer off the top of your head, but knowing that you can go and find the answer if you need it, and just knowing that that's good enough.
You bring up that imposter syndrome, and I don't know if I ever told you about it, but after I started my mobile lube company and it was time to hire the first employee, I wanted to do it right, because in the past I had people work for me, but I just wasn't good at it. I didn't understand how to, relationally maintain my crew. I'd have a lot of turnover, right? And I started interviewing people I knew, other business people who happened to, a lot of them were customers of my mobile lube. But I had noticed over the years that they kept employees for a long time. And so I sat down, I took them to lunch one-on-one. I probably interviewed 50 different people. And one of my questions on my list was imposter syndrome. Have you ever experienced that? That's on the list right here in front of me that I was going to ask you. And so I love that you brought it up without me even asking. But it was 100% of those business owners, men and women both. It was like, yeah, I kind of feel like I'm making it up every day. And I love that you just confirmed that, right?
Yeah, for sure. Especially like when people hear my past and things, and they're it's always like, hey, good job and congratulations, but there's always like a really, and then I'm like, really? Did I, you know what I mean? Did I really do that?
So this is something to talk about too, because you just spurred this thought with me. Sometimes we walk around thinking that people know the struggles we've been through, right? It's almost like we have this tattoo on our forehead that says, oh, I did this, or I had this, I made this bad choice, or whatever it was. We don't. And so people, they're not seeing through that. They don't know what was in the past, right? And you've overcome so much stuff, but I think you can carry that around sometimes, and you shouldn't, but you do. And what have you done to kind of tip that, just to overcome that line of thinking?
So therapy is a very good thing. I think one thing, honestly, that has really, really helped me is I am very fortunate to have an amazing mom and dad. Just it's kind of, I mean, they've been married for 5 million years, and I think that's one reason that I was a little hesitant to divorce too, because my grandparents were married 5 million years. Our grandparents,
Yeah.
sorry, my parents feel like they've been married for that long, and I don't want to be like the first one that does this divorce thing. But and I told you my parents weren't happy about my relationship with this guy, but they never once said, "I told you so." They said, how can we help and what do we need to do, and we're so supportive. I mean, a single mom getting a engineering degree, it's not, I mean, if you knew how many credits it was, like I was taking well over 12 credits every semester so that I could get it done, plus working at the same time, because I guess kids need to eat sometimes, I don't know. um, it was me dropping them off of school, me picking them up from school. What happens when the kids are sick? And I was very lucky that my dad was self-employed, so usually he could get away and come sit with the sick kid while I went to class. There was a strict rule that if they puked, it would be there when I got home for me to clean up. He wasn't cleaning it up, but um, other than that, very supportive. I think that's helpful. And saying that, that doesn't mean, you can have it doesn't have to be blood relation. Just make sure that you are surrounding yourself with good supportive people who are not just babysit your kids, but are there for you emotionally, are there for you when you need a hug. I'm not a hugger, let's be clear. Or but are also saying, hey, you're doing a good job, keep going. I think that it's surrounding yourself with the right people is so important for everybody's mental health.
Oh, it's beautiful. Um, I want to switch back a little bit. You talked about coming into the engineering field, and then the things that you can't be taught in school. One of them you mentioned was leadership. Sometimes that is such a shock to people that they almost cower from it. And what kind of things do you do to grow as a leader?
Anytime there is some kind of a leadership webinar, leadership this, leadership that, I will take it, and I'll find that a lot of times it's stuff I've heard before, but just the reminder is so good. When it seems like when you are, leadership is usually the hardest when you're having to correct somebody's behavior or something like that. Like that's when it's the hardest. And so having those reminders is really, really good. I also find, and it's funny that I did this with my sons, and I didn't, I have one son and one daughter. I did this with my son and didn't even realize that it was something that I was doing, but um, not being afraid to say, I don't know the answer, let me find it. So with my son, it would be like, you're not supposed to do that, but I don't know what your punishment is going to be, so I'll get back to you. His punishment was waiting for the punishment to see what it was. Is usually the worst punishment for
It's the
him.
anxiety of
But even at work, yeah. But even at work, or mentoring engineering students or anything like that, like I won't be afraid to be like, okay, this is something I obviously need to address, something that shouldn't have been done, but let me go and see how I want to handle this before I'm like, why did you just do that? Why did you, you know what I mean? Like, take the time to make sure that you're addressing it because they're human beings, right? We were just saying we don't know what people are going through. One of the biggest things I've learned is when I see somebody not being as productive as they usually are, or
Mm.
a little bit late for work or something like that, 99% of the time I can say, is everything okay with you? And usually it's something at home that is going on. And then the second all they've done is let me in on it and let me know that something's going on, I see their productivity increase because they just like it's a relief that like, okay, I don't have to worry about this at work anymore. I can get on with my job.
You know, that's an interesting thing because that's something I've learned over the years is that generally people who work for you, they want to impress you. That's their, just deep down they want to impress you. And if they feel like they're not, and they have a perception that you're not being impressed, we'll say, then that tends to create a downward spiral, right? There's just like, I didn't impress the boss, and so now, it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And I think that's a good insight that you have there is that generally people want to do a good job, and if they're not, there's a reason for it.
And that's one thing. The same mentor that did the dam, the technical side of things, just showed me through watching him is I realized that he was always so thankful, always so appreciative, always made sure that the employees recognized that he recognized what they were doing. And one thing I've really had to concentrate on is if I'm in the middle of something and somebody's like, "Hey, how are you?" I'm like, "Good." That I need to stop and be sincere because I do care. I mean, I've most of my team that I have are all came when I got the company, and they're great. There's a few new, but just like making sure that there's reasons they've been here for a long time, and make sure that I'm consistent with that, and make sure I'm taking the time to. It's not always a, hey, is that drawing done? Where are you out on these calcs? Like, how are things? How was your weekend? How's your son doing? What, things like that, that those are important things. And you're not taught warm fuzzies in school, but you need to have warm fuzzies. It's what makes,
Well,
it's
and so
keeps people happy.
people that don't know here, Krystal, you have legendary sarcasm. Yeah. And the reason I bring this up is because I ran into this situation. I actually just told this story this morning to somebody I was meeting with. I had this tendency to be very harsh with people, and it's not that I intend to be, but I'll come across, I don't know whether it's just the deadpan face or what it is, but it's like I will, if I'm not careful, I can just destroy somebody's, enthusiasm because that's how I come across. And I had to become very aware of that. And I had a guy one time call me out on it. He says, "Do you know how you sound when you talk?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "You sound so harsh, man." And I've had to, just as I grow as a leader, dial that back and realize when it's even happening. What steps have you taken in that regard?
So I've learned that there are a couple of people in the office that don't understand my sarcasm, and so I have to really be like, "That was sarcastic." One thing that we've done in this office is, there's tons. There's the disc, there's the predictive index, there's all of those things. And of course, you have to take all of these things with a grain of salt, but they give you a pretty good idea. I actually have a little flyer over here on my wall that says we did the predictive index. And surprise, surprise, I'm a captain. I know that's sarcasm again, just so you know.
Thanks for
Um,
explaining it to me.
and and it's like, this is how I like to be communicated with. And everybody in my office has one of those at their desk as a reminder to, um, it's not how I'm relaying the information, it's how they're perceiving it. That's something that's very important to me. And so, but we all know it, that if I am harsh or sarcastic, sometimes they have to, okay, that's how she is. But then at the same time, I have to remember this is how they would prefer to communicate. So let's do that. You just, you have to be flexible, and you have to make sure you understand other people. And if you don't, it makes things harder. And um, sometimes realizing when you're doing it and taking a step back, so that you change. You can't be so set in your ways that it's my way or the highway, which would be surprising for people to hear me say, because I like things done my way. But luckily for my name is Krystal, so I just tell people I'm crystallizing it, and it kind of softens the blow.
That's all. You had a built-in object lesson right there.
But yeah, you just constantly learning, constantly reminding yourself that, and being able to be flexible.
Hey, business owners, I want to talk to you for a second. Do you have a retail space or a pro shop inside your business? If so, I want you to know something. Your customers are buying electrolyte supplements. The problem is they're not buying them from you. Salty Electrolytes can help with that with their wholesale program. They can bring those sales to you in-house so your customers get the electrolytes they deserve from the company they love most. All you have to do is head over to goearnyourSalt.com, scroll to the bottom of the page, and click on the link that says Apply for Wholesale. Or it's possible that there's a link in the description of this podcast. And now, my friends, go earn your salt. Yeah, you mentioned that term, my way or the highway, and that's to me, that's the poster quote of a crappy leader. They're just, I guess this brings me to this question. How do you handle it when one of your, we'll call them subordinates just for the context of this question, has a better idea than you? Sometimes that happens where you're just like freaking awesome, but you have to kind of suck up the pride and go, man, they're going to do this thing and it's better than what I thought of. And yeah, okay, cool.
That's never happened to me. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, that was sarcasm. I saw it.
That was sarcasm. Listener, sarcasm. I'm glad, because one thing I realize is this business is only as good as the people who are in it. And so so I love the input, and I love it when they have a good idea. So I started a leadership class type thing that was more about small businesses, and talking about, you need to have a mission statement, you need to have values, you need all of these things. And I was like, we don't have any of that. And they were like, okay, well, let's do it. What do you want to do? And I was like, us two aren't doing it. Do you realize that there's people that have worked at A&E for 25 years? That's the people we need to be asking. And we made it an office
Project.
It was, bring me things that you think that they should be values, and why, and what are some mission statement ideas. Very fortunate to have a company that we worked with who was great at facilitating the whole thing. But he said to me, this is the first time ever I've worked with a business that haven't had these things. And they said, I want to bring my team in. So I feel like a leader who is stuck on thinking that their ideas are the best and doesn't listen to anybody else is
Foolish.
Probably foolish, yeah. And their business probably isn't going to do that great. And so I've also learned that when an employee comes to me with a question, they know that I expect them to have the answers as well. If it's technical, it's a little bit different, but I will make sure they know where to find the answer for themselves in the future. But if it's not technical, it's a what do you think we should do? And one thing that I say a lot is, if you have a boat in water and it's the water line, if you poke a hole in the boat above the water line, what happens? Nothing happens. So if we find out that the decision you make is bad, but it was above the water line, we're fine. Now, if you poke a hole and it's below the water line, we're going to sink. So I appreciate you coming to me, but it's also, you're in your position because I think you're qualified. So trust your gut instinct. If you need to make a decision and I'm not available, it's not going to sink the boat. Do it.
Yeah.
And if you want an opinion, that's great, but come to me with some options of what you think is going to be best. Because if it's your way or the highway, then you're not going to get better ideas, and then you're not going to have employees who can make decisions without you, and you're not going to be able to get a day off or get a vacation.
Yeah.
I just went to Vegas for a week, and I got a couple emails and a couple of phone calls, and they were like, sorry to bother you, but it was like, this is a below the waterline kind of a decision, so we need you. But other than that, I had a blast, and never felt like I was being bothered, which is another thing. When somebody comes to me and says, sorry to bother you, I'm like, that's not,
Yeah.
you're not bothering me. That's what I'm here for. Or sorry. We don't apologize. Like in this office, there's never if I do catch something and, hey, I noticed this needs fixed, and they say sorry, it's like, no, that's why we double check things before it leaves. If we caught it in the office, we caught it. It's not a sorry.
That's awesome. That analogy of the poking a hole above or below the water line, that I'm going to probably steal that. Just heads up.
Well, I would like to claim that's my own analogy, but I also stole it from a old wise man.
Oh.
I hope he listens to this so he hears me call him old.
I take it he'll know who he is. So,
oh yeah, he'll know.
Let's move on here. To a few years ago. What's it been, 3, maybe 4 years ago that you fell?
4 years, if we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah, we're talking about your fall. Where just to preface this, Krystal, you were on a job site, and you were up in the rafters of it was at a house, wasn't it? And took a misstep and fell through the ceiling. And you weren't minorly injured. This was major, life-threatening type injury. And I want you to talk about that, kind of what that looked like, what the recovery looked like, how that affected your world.
I want to preface this with, we are a very, very safe company. We follow OSHA regulations. We have plans that you fill out about safety. So I was hired by an insurance company who needed me to inspect a roof and the trusses because they were seeing a lot of leaking and they didn't know where it was coming from. And so I had done the outside inspection. I had inspected what I needed to in the house, and it was time to go up and actually look at the trusses. And the come to find out that the opening into the attic was not framed properly, but then it was covered with insulation, so I didn't know that. And so when I crawled in there and I put my weight on where I thought there was supposed to be a support, and there wasn't one. And so of course I fell through the sheetrock. And it was in a garage, and I fell about 10 feet, and there had been flooding, so they had moved some of the furniture to the garage. And I ended up, these are all assumptions I've made based on what was there, because although I remember it pretty good, I didn't take the time to say, what just almost sliced my carotid artery in half?
Yeah.
So I think, so I have a pretty good scar. I'm lucky that it is pretty hidden, that I hit the corner of like a solid oak nightstand. There was a sharp corner, and it cut me open right here. While that was the one that was the least painful for me, that was the one that just a centimeter closer and it would have taken my life. I hit my sternum on something. I'm assuming something solid wood also. So I got a hairline fracture in my sternum, hairline fracture in my shoulder blade, and then broke 2 ribs, and they were dislocated. So it was a pretty good break. It was painful.
Yeah.
I was in a lot of pain. Um, Lots of pain, lots of, it was like physical therapy before. I mean, I'm again back to my wonderful parents. My mother lived with me for like um, a month because I couldn't get in and out of bed out by myself. I couldn't get on and off the toilet by myself. These so thank goodness for her.
Yeah. And that was a long recovery. That wasn't like, he bounced back in a week. That was how long?
Still, I will still do things that, and I mean, I do strength training and things like that. So I try to keep my muscles strong, but there will still be sometimes that I do something that I don't do a lot. Dig a hole for a tree or something like that, and I'll be like, "Oh, those don't use those muscles and they hurt." Or also like, this still sounds so old lady to me, but like, "Oh, my muscles are hurting. It's when it gets cold, I'll feel it more." Things like that. Like you feel it.
Yeah.
Also, there's the emotional trauma because I will never go into an attic space again. Like I got cameras for that.
Don't blame you there for sure. Um, so lately here in the last year, you have gone on a pretty substantial weight loss journey. Talk about that because it's not been insignificant. I mean, I don't you don't need to tell me too much, but what's been the protocol and the routine and the goals and all that stuff?
So, um,
That
uh,
was sarcasm again, wasn't it?
when yeah, and if you're not watching, I pretended like I was gagging myself, just so you know. Um, so I need to thank your wife, Lindsay, because when I had my accident, I was in really good shape. Lindsay had taught me about a program that food consumption, making sure you have all the right vitamins, exercise, and all of these things. And so, like at that time, I was eating healthy and I was in pretty good shape. I mean, which I think helped me a lot with my recovery as well. But also at the same time, I was very depressed. I mean, I was somebody that um, I was I loved to go and I loved to do things and I couldn't, and I was stuck at home and I couldn't go to work and I couldn't I got pretty depressed. And so, what do you do when you're depressed? This ice cream looks awesome and maybe I'll have a glass of wine with dinner, that would turn into a bottle sometimes, and so, and then you feel bad and then you're not doing your regular exercise and things like that. So the weight came on pretty fast. And about 2 years ago, I was working a project that in Moses Lake, Washington, I was doing 5 flights of stairs every day. And I was like, this is ridiculous. 2 years ago, I could have done this no problem. And I'm feeling it. And I'm like, right now. And it was then immediately that I changed my diet back to what I knew I should be eating. And I was getting my daily exercise um, at work, going up and down the stairs. But I noticed like how much better I was feeling as I was doing those things. The It was a little bit slow for the weight to come off, so I did ask the doctor about that. And ladies, you'll hopefully appreciate this. And there's a lot more education about it now, but I'm at that age. They're, hitting perimenopause. And she's like, yeah, it's harder to come off. And let's check your hormones. And she got me doing a little bit of hormone therapy. She was really great about talking about the risks. My mom's had breast cancer, so want to make sure that that's not going to be a problem. And the sticking to my diet, doing my exercise, strength training, and feeling better about myself. I'm a big reading books that aren't just for leadership, but your overall well-being, positive attitude. Yeah, you're going to have tough times, but you'll get through it. has all been things to help. I think that's one thing that people may not realize, how much emotional and mental toll it can take on you at the same time. And then you start looking better, you start feeling better, and it's just like it's going to be a lifestyle change for me. For the rest of my life, I will get up every morning and walk 2 miles, sometimes later than other mornings, but I will. And I try to do it in 30 minutes so you get your cardio, keep my strength training up. And I'm not trying to be weightlifting, just like want to increase muscle where I need it or maintain it where, things like that. So, and then of course, makes you feel better.
But you alluded to something where you didn't directly say it, but we talked earlier about sometimes you get into that cycle of depression where you have that downward spiral. But the opposite can happen, and that sounds like where you are now, where man, you made some healthy choices. You started doing the stuff. It was slow at first, but then you mentioned you start to look better, you start to feel better, and it's like, oh my gosh, I can keep doing this. Like if this is the payoff, I want to keep going on that cycle. And so now we're on an upward spiral, right? And that's something for people to listen to is you can get caught in either one. One's destructive and one is very productive. And it's awesome to hear. And, when I saw you here, what was a month ago or so, that I was down in Pocatello and got to see you finally. I think the last 5 times I've been there, I haven't got to see you. You've been out of town when I'm there. And but I was really impressed. You look great, and it's cool to see that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's funny to me because I mean, because you even was like maybe a year ago, and I'm like, oh no, I started this 2 years ago. But and you see the small changes, but other people don't, and it's so funny because people literally think that like I fell asleep yesterday and woke up today and weighed 100 pounds less. Like that's not like everybody thinks like there's a magic pill you can take to do it. And I'm like, oh, I've been working at this.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a cool thing to hear because the point is it's not something you do one day. Oh, you had a good workout today, but then you're not going to do another one for a year. That doesn't work, right? It's this consistent, slow, tortoise in the hare kind of a thing. It's just that steady pace makes it happen.
Well, and also I think not beating yourself up. When I was on vacation, and there were a couple of days because I was in Las Vegas, so it was hot. But even what time I did wake up, it was too hot to go for a walk. But don't beat yourself up. That doesn't mean you give up. Get up and do it the next day, Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. We've talked about all these, life experiences and how you've come from a hard place and not all life's easy now, but it's better. What would you do different if you could do it all over again?
I wouldn't change anything because what I've learned and what I know I will never do again, and that I know that I've done it the hard way so that so other people can maybe not have to do it such the hard way. I wouldn't change anything.
That's so beautiful. It is true that our experiences shape us, right? And certain people ask me all the time, I went through a pretty bad bankruptcy a few years back. And that's one of those things I wouldn't trade it because the learning experiences were just too good. It was hard, but man, I wouldn't trade it. I just wouldn't.
I'm going to say that there's things that happen in your life that you would maybe be like, oh, this is embarrassing. I'm not going to share this with anybody. For me, that's like being in an abusive relationship. Like I feel like I'm a smart person. I'm not shy or passive at all. Like why would I let that happen to me? But it's like it can happen to anybody, and if you share, you could save somebody else from having to go through that. Instead of being embarrassed about it, just be glad that you learned from it.
Yeah, for real. Can we move on to some lighter stuff?
Yeah, please.
Um, this is called the Go Earn Your Salt podcast. When you hear the term "Go Earn Your Salt," what comes to mind?
Um, delicious powder that I put in my water after a workout. Um, I think it is you can't get anywhere in life um, without putting in the work. You can't have somebody else do it for you. And part of getting there and being proud of yourself for where you've got is knowing what work you put in to get there. I think that's what is most important is and remembering that when you're going through the hard times that I'm earning my salt right now and this is what it takes to do this.
Yeah, nice. What's your favorite pastime?
Um, I really like to read. I'm a reader, obviously, listening to podcasts. I have a couple really good girlfriends. We like to do wine tasting Tuesday nights. We'll be doing that tonight. Some snacks and tasting some wine. And I I like to go shooting. That's pretty fun for me. Something that my son and I can do. It's probably one of the only things that I like to do outdoors. I really like electricity, air conditioning, and flushing toilets. Um, I sleeping in my own bed. I really enjoy. I enjoy doing yard work. I enjoy, and I think it's another thing about earning your salt. My yard looks nice because I put in the work. My house is clean because I put in the work. I like doing those things that I can reap the benefits of.
That's fantastic. You've mentioned being a big reader a couple times. What's a book you would recommend everyone read?
Uh, right now, I think this might be one of my all-time favorite books. It's The Happiness Trap by Russ somebody. And it is just like we're so the world programs us to think that we're always supposed to be happy and everything is supposed to be going perfect, and that's not how it is. So when you're happy, enjoy it, and when something bad happens, you're at a choice point and you need to decide, am I going to do something that's going to make this better or I'm going to do something that makes this worse? um,
Ooh,
and and that's all you have to do. You'd be like, uh, if you having those feelings, like, yeah, I'm going to have these feelings. I'm a human being, but treat them like traffic that they just going to go by and they'll pass and it'll be okay.
that is awesome how you just phrase that. I'm writing that down because that's going to be your opening statement here.
Oh,
Uh,
perfect.
um, okay. If you go to a restaurant and you order a hamburger and they put the veggies below the meat patty, is that okay?
Um, listen, I've worked food service, so I would be nice about it, but I would probably move them to the top of the patty.
In front of the server, right? So they could see that you weren't pleased with it.
No, no, they don't need to know. And it was the cook that did it, not the server.
Oh
So
man. Yeah, can't handle that upside down burger. Just I don't know.
no, I mean, my dad will get in my car and adjust things just so that when I get in my car, I adjust them back because maybe a little bit of OCD. Or if he's cold, he'll turn it up 2 notches because he knows I'll turn it back one. So that's just how I am.
That is awesome. You guys have a pretty special relationship.
We do.
Yeah. I would we're kind of running low on time, but I'd love to talk more about that. Maybe on a future episode we can do that. But
Maybe.
were you ever kicked out of school?
I plead the fifth.
You can't plead the fifth. This is a podcast. This is where we talk about these things.
Um, kicked out, no. But my parents did move me from one junior high to another junior high because I was hanging out with a not so great crowd. Um, and I think it was a good move, and they made the right choice. that I made new friends at the other school and had a cousin there, a different cousin who, would probably tattletale on me if I didn't mind my P's and Q's. So
That's so funny. Bucket list challenge. What are you going to do? What do you hope to do in the future?
I want to go skydiving. It would probably be a tandem jump, but I'm thinking like maybe even this summer I want to go skydiving. I also want to get my PhD, so I'm partway through that. I tried. I have most of the credits I need, and so now I need to find a great experiment to work on. And I want to do something really new. And I've had things come across me that were just like, no, that's not really what is interesting to me. It helps if it's interesting. So I would eventually, I might be 80 by the time I do that, but to get my PhD, I do adjunct faculty. I do a little bit of teaching almost every other semester is what it was, and I really enjoy that. So I'd like to continue to do that.
Nice. Well, where can you be found? You mentioned in the context of the episode, or in the middle of it there, that your company is called A&E. What's the full name?
It's A&E Engineering and Surveying. We are located in Pocatello, Idaho, pretty much licensed in all the southeast Idaho states. And we have civil, structural, mechanical engineering. We can do big industrial things, commercial things. We can do little, inspect your foundation, inspect the trusses in your roof. I'll send somebody else for that. And licensed surveyors, we have 2 licensed surveyors, so we could do everything from topo and what you need to plan something to FEMA flood map stuff to boundary surveys.
Oh man, that's a lot right there. It sounds like a very diverse, broad spectrum of stuffs.
It makes work fun because you pretty much the same thing doesn't come across your desk twice.
That is super cool. All right, Krystal. Well, listen, thanks for coming on. It was just super fun to hang out with you. I know we don't get to do this kind of thing often enough.
We should just pretend to do more podcasts so we visit more.
Yeah,
often.
we'll just call and do video calls for fun.
I appreciate the invite, and it was fun chatting with you.
Yeah, it's great. Krystal, go earn your salt.
Hey, thanks. Love you. You probably don't hear that on podcasts.
I don't, but love you too. Hey, you've just finished up this episode, and I've got to know, do you know someone who's a getting after it kind of person? Someone who is earning their salt every day? If so, I would like to have them on the show. So have them message me directly at the Go Earn Your Salt podcast on Instagram. Let's see if we can get them on the show. Have a great day. You know what to do. Go earn your salt.